I said, God, you gotta move this mountain. I just don't see it any other way. I'm too weak to make the climb. I need a miracle this time. That's when I said, God, you gotta move this mountain. I just don't see it any other way. I'm too weak to make the climb. I need a miracle this time. That's when
Good afternoon. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC in Christ Radio, your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television, channel 182, locally right here in North Alabama. That's channel 182 on Charter Communications. You can also find us on Abundant TV, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. It's going to be another great show today. Coming up today at 2 o'clock, Philip Gilliland was with us yesterday, but Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey, who are with Alabama Fair Tax, will be with us coming up at 2 o'clock today. And we're waiting on a call from JM Music Man. Not sure if he's going to be able to make it or not. So anyway, I decided to go on ahead and look up some information for you guys, because I have one of our listeners, Janice today said that her air conditioning went out. When, at least that wasn't last week when it went out. So she wants to know if I know of some tips of keeping the house cooled off with waiting on the repair person to get there, as well as how to keep Janice and everybody else cooled off in the house. She said it's getting kind of trying right now. And as you know, the best air conditioning people are the ones who are always backlogged. They're the ones who are always busy, and you always have to get a ticket and stand in line for these folks. So they're awesome ones. But before I get with that, I wanted to mention that on Thursday, I'll be talking with Rob Patz, and Rob is the owner of Abundant TV, and real exciting things happening for him as he goes through the journey of owning a television station, and it's worldwide. And Don Hunton is from the Lookout Mountain Cowboy Church. He'll be with us tomorrow, so we're excited about that. That'll be around 2 o'clock-ish, and we're looking forward to getting started. Okay, Janice, I'm going to go ahead, and I found some really good material. And let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I'll go ahead and give you the website. And this is for the 10 ways to stay cool when your air conditioning is out. And this is for anybody, okay? But it gets extremely hot and humid here in Alabama. Not so bad today. And we had some rain last night, so that kind of kept things up a little bit. I'm talking a lot of rain, and we didn't have to water the garden or the flowers this morning. So that was pretty neat. But this is found on Terry's AC and Heating.com. That's Terry's, TerrysS. I'm not sure I got that right. Yeah, Terry's AC and Heating.com. So this guy owns a heating and air conditioning, and let's see where he's from. And so here we go. Yeah, he had sent this earlier. Okay, he lives in Texas. You should know in Texas. Okay, it's a lot like it is here in Alabama. When you've got heat, you've got heat. I mean, it's pretty rough. So anyway, on his website, there are 10 ways to stay cool when your air conditioner is out. And we've had this happen to us before. And it always happens generally when it's the hottest time of the year, absolutely hottest. And so, and then if you live in a 2-story house, you've just got to live downstairs because the heat, hot air rises. And if you're in your upstairs, you can't live it. I mean, it's just terrible. Okay, so this is what Terry's Heating and Air Conditioning says. When it's hot and humid outside, how do you stay cool when the air conditioner is out? So he's trying to give people tips on, because he's a really good guy, and he's got lots of real good references from customers. So when you've got somebody good like that, you're going to have some patience and wait on them. And I know it's easier said than done. So it has happened to everybody. Even if you are always having your heating and air conditioning maintained, sometimes an air conditioner can just pop and just stop. Why? Air conditioners work overtime, and they don't get a break for months. I mean, we keep them going and going and going. Now, we let ours go down a little bit at night because it's cooler here at night. So this is an electrical part failure that can bring everything into a standstill. There are things you can check yourself if your air conditioning is not cooling before you call an HVAC person. Chances are you may have to wait for them to arrive if the weather is scorching and you're in line. Here are 10 ways to stay more comfortable in your home if your air conditioner or heat pump is not working. Sometimes just simply turning the power off and turning the power back on can help. That has helped with us before. Rare, but it could be that. Turn on a fan or two. Okay, fans are of every type can make you feel cooler. Portable fans are inexpensive and available nearly everywhere, including the big box hardware stores. We always keep some extra fans around just in case that does happen. Circulating air with a fan helps to evaporate the sweat from your skin, and this effect makes you feel cooler. It won't cool the air, but it will help you lower your body temperature. So depending on how warm and humid it is outside or inside, a fan can make the temperature feel several degrees cooler, even through the wind chill effect. But I wanted to mention one other thing. If you get some ice, if you got a portable fan, and you'll get maybe a little bucket or something of ice and put it in front of the fan, it's almost like an air conditioner. Not quite as good, but it does help better than just having the fan there. We learned that the hard way. And what we did, we had to wait about 3 days for air. I mean, it was pretty rough, but we got the best guy in town. And once he got there, he was fixed. And so we got one of those styrofoam coolers and just filled it full of bagged ice and put that in front of fans. And that made it more bearable. So it really made it a lot easier. Okay, pull out the portable, the humidifier. I never thought about that to stay cool. Now, if you have one of those portable dehumidifier, you can fire those up to reduce the temperature indoors. So you can pair it with a ceiling fan to increase the cooling effect. This works best if you live in an area that has high humidity, like we have here in Alabama. It can get pretty rough, even with the air conditioning on. But I think ours must have only 2 effects. You can either have it low or extremely cold where you can hang meat. It gets pretty cool inside here. Okay, cover the windows and keep external doors closed. Keep heat and humidity from coming in through windows and doors. That's why having blackout curtains, shades, and blinds are recommended. They can reduce the overall heat load on the house, and that is definitely true. We have our back faces go south, okay? So we have this dining room. We used to use it as a den. It has sliding glass doors, and that's the perfect room to stay in when it is cold outside because the heat just bears down on those, and they're huge sliding glass doors. Now, in the summertime, it's a whole lot cooler to be in front of the house, and so you're not getting all of that hot south coming into your house through the windows. Okay, and stay hydrated. This is more important than you know. Absolutely. Make sure you keep cool drinks on the menu. Perhaps even more than usual. By keeping yourself hydrated, you will equip your body to better weather a warmer than usual indoor temperature. Now, this is the time to break out those insulated water bottles. And many of the insulated drinkware brands, but they use a lot of RTIC. Now, that's a company that's based out of Houston. And he gives a website. Just look up RTIC, and it's a company that's located in Houston. Certain foods can also help you with your hydration goals, but break out the watermelon. That's a good thing to make sure it's cold. There's nothing better than cold watermelon to cool you down. But stuff like soups and stuff like that are going to make you hotter. And I could eat soup just about all year round, but when the air conditioner was out at our house, the air unit, you didn't want soup. We had a lot of sandwiches, a lot of salads and stuff like that, stuff you didn't have to cook. And because cooking is going to heat up the kitchen. And also, if you have to, let's say you want to make some biscuits in the morning, and Phil gets a biscuit every morning. And so instead of using the big oven, why don't you use one of those little portable ovens? Because first of all, they're better to use in the summertime. Not going to heat up the kitchen near as bad. But I feel sorry for you if it's right in the middle of canning season, you got to use the kitchen and the air goes out. That is rough. Absolutely. So another thing that you need to think about is don't run heat generating appliances. If you can, don't run the dryer, run the dishwasher, or use your oven while your air conditioner is out. I kind of got a step ahead on that. But if you do need to run them at night when it's cooler outside. I learned that the hard way. Washing clothes and then using the dryer, it really does. I mean, it makes it kind of rough out there. And also using heat generating appliances can have an effect of making it hotter inside the home, like a microwave, a slow cooker, or an instant pot. On the other hand, can generate less overall heat. That's a great idea. And we are more prone in the summertime anyway to use like a crock pot or something like that. Okay, consider wearing clothing designed for heat. Now that makes all the difference in the world. I'm telling you, light colored clothing with vents, a loose fit, and fabrics that wick moisture away can make a difference in comfort. You might say fabrics that could be described as cool touch fabrics. They use something called Huck gear, and that's HUK gear, and they use that to stay cool. So the Arctic Cool is another brand of clothing that is optimized to cool, and there are many, many more. Cooling towels and neck wraps are a really good way to also stay cool. And I'll tell you what we did also when all of the heat and everything was, when the air conditioner went out, we had these towels in these plastic, these little plastic things that can go around your neck. And people sometimes use those when they're swimming or whatever, just to float. They use them for kids sometimes. But if they have, like if it's water generated or gel generated, you can put those things in the freezer and put that around your neck, and that'll cool you off. And another way to stay cooled off too is to get ice cubes and just put that on your pulse points, and like at your wrist or at your ankles and around the neck area. Those are pulse points. Right in on the front part of your neck is a good place. Just keep some ice cubes right there, and that will help out as well to do that. Okay, invest in bedding items to keep cool. Believe it or not, staying cool at night is a big business. You can purchase mattresses, mattress toppers, and pillows that are cool to the touch. And you need to do that by going to mypillow.com. Go to mypillow.com, which is really, really cool. And they have a really big deal going on right now. A lot of things are actually more than half price off. But if you put the code in Donna, Donna, we love their mattress covers, are awesome. And because we got one of these mattresses, I don't know what it's made out of, and it was real good. They got it at Ashley Furniture. I mean, it costs a lot of money too. But that thing is, it stays hot. Even for me, and I'm very cold natured. So this mattress topper that we got at mypillow.com was the answer to that, because we spent a lot of money for that mattress. I didn't want to give it away or anything. I had to think of something, but the mattress topper really worked. Okay, let's see. Another, right here. Cooling bed sheets that wick away moisture, another way to combat the heat. Now, another brand of luxury cooling sheets are linen sheets that are made in America and from Lento. And what I want to do also, and I keep talking about My Pillow because this is a really good company and they have some really good stuff, but they have their own brand of sheets that are cooling sheets as well. And now's the time to get them because they're buy one, get one free. Buy one, get one free. And any size bed you want. And again, that code so you can get it, buy one, get one free, is Donna, Donna. Plug in a portable air conditioning unit. Now, window units or portable air conditioning units that either sit on the windowsill or sit on the ground next to the window can help you stay comfortable indoors. Now, if it left up to me, it's all we would have, because that's all I need. I'm so cold natured. They may not be very efficient, but they can work in a pinch. Now, to me, they work awesome and real good to use. Okay, let's see. If you only have one, do not try to cool your entire room, home. So you might want to just concentrate on a small part of the house. So if you've got a 2,000 square foot house, you might want to concentrate on bedroom, den, and maybe your kitchen and bathroom, of course. And so let all the other rooms, if there's no one but you and your husband in the house, maybe you only need one bedroom. Don't try to cool all the entire bedrooms if you got 3 bedrooms. So it can get kind of rough. Let's say pick a room, start with portable air conditioner and keep the door closed to keep the cool inside. That's really important too. And again, those blackout curtains really do work. So you might have to run down to a department store and get some of those and put those up, but they do work. And go swimming. Yeah, that's another good way. Just jump in a pool. And another way in the summers, find a public swimming pool. Rent access to a swimming pool or visit a water park. That might be a good idea. In and around Houston, he says, and make it a day at the pool. But right here in Alabama, we've got the same thing going on. Obviously, that doesn't work in everyone's schedule. He says, but his kids are a big fan of water parks. One of the favorites is Splashway in Sheridan, Texas, just a short mile away. But we've got plenty of those things here. We've got Six Flags. And, you know, sometimes just being in an elevated area, if you want to take a short trip, maybe to Tennessee and go up in the mountainous areas. And I'll tell you a place that just about stays cool all year round. And that's Asheville, North Carolina. That place is always cool. So find it might be a good time to go ahead and take a vacation. Find another air-conditioned spot to hang out. This is what I was just about to tell you about. It may go without saying that when the heat is on, sometimes the easiest thing to do is find a different place to hang out. Public library, you're going to find out public libraries are awesome anyway. So let's go ahead and let JL in. Let's see. Yeah, panelist. Okay, and we'll get him started just a second. But the mall, if you have a mall anywhere close by, that's a good thing to do as well. And so
Being recorded.
And find some of your friends as well, by the way. Who may the panelists. Hi. Yeah, we've already started the show, but come on in. I'll go ahead and click start video, and then you'll be in.
Okay, I'm looking.
Yeah, to find it. I don't know if you're on a laptop or what you're on. That
No, I'm on a. Okay, now it's showing me a symbol, but it's not letting me on video for some reason.
Yeah, are you on a laptop or?
No, I'm on a desktop in my home studio here.
Okay, all right. Well, look, maybe it's either at the top or the bottom, and see if you can find start video, and that'll be.
Yeah, I did. I clicked on it. It said start, but then it's just showing me this weird symbol, but not letting the video start.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. And and guys, we'll go back to how to say cool if your air conditioning goes out. And I wanted to say, Janice, I hope your air conditioning is working now. To find a really good HVAC person, you're going to have to wait in line usually, but I hope that works. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, coming at the bottom of the hour. Okay, I have JL Music Man with me right now. Hey, guy, how are you doing?
I'm doing terrific. How have you been?
Well, doing really good. It actually has cooled off a little bit here in the Alabama humidity, and we had some last night, so that's good. You know, we've all been complaining about the weather, whether it's too hot or too cold. We even complain about it if it's all really good. So, who knows?
Yeah. Well, that's what weather's for, isn't it? To complain about it.
Yeah. And even though you can't do anything about it.
Okay.
So talk with us about your music. I know you sent an MP3 to me, and I really liked it. So let's talk about it. How long have you been in the music world?
That's that'd be dating me. I've done 103 albums as of now.
Awesome.
So it's been a while. Probably about 40 some years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I was. Let's talk about your style of music.
Okay, sure. Here's something that I tried to do. As an artist, I always felt like I didn't want to be pigeonholed, so I kept changing my genre. So I would do like 3 albums of country, and then 3 albums of rock and roll, and then 3 albums of jazz, and 3 albums of children's stuff, and 3 albums of. That's kind of how I did things. But eventually, what happened was I kind of settled into doing. I would call, just a broad spectrum of America's music when I was talking, because I was talking about issues that mattered to North America. I live in Canada. I'm American, so I have both viewpoints on this whole situation. And I guess why, when COVID hit and everything started to get mandated and freedom started to fall, I said, this is an issue that's going to affect us all, and we simply got to stand up for freedom. Mm-hmm. So I started doing all kinds of different projects and all kinds of different music.
That's good. Let me ask your opinion too. We're talking a little bit of politics right now, but it's I'm just giving you my opinion about a few things. First of all, I think we could all get along with each other if it just feels as if there are people extreme on both sides who are trying to just separate us, and let us become enemies with each other. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you. I'm like, see, I'm a very committed Christian, and one of the things that has always bothered me is that the media wants to screen out certain viewpoints. They don't want you out there. If you're a committed Christian, they want you to be recording music that's, Jesus music and only that. Well, I started there, and I kind of grew up, and then I kind of left that. I kind of went into kind of generic approaches to music, simply because not because I was wavering in my faith, but because I just didn't want to be pigeonholed. And I always felt like, it's kind of like going into an artist and
I think I
or
probably
into an art gallery and seeing that no, you pretty much need to get a life and realize that, we're all living and we're living together. And there's a lot of differences around us. But just because, those differences are important. They're important to actually discuss rather than to say, well, you think that way, I'm not talking to you anymore.
Well, there was a time though, my granddads, one was a Democrat and one granddad was a Republican, but they would get together and talk about it without fighting. And they would talk about their differences. And I think if they were still around, they would still do that. Although I'm not sure if my Democrat granddad would still be a Democrat.
Well, there are things. Here's the problem with what I see as the Democrat position is that they are forcing people to think a certain way. In other words, look, if you have a moral value that says you can't kill babies, for example, and then you're going to have somebody say, well, that's part of our platform, is that we have to be able to do that. You're going to come up with some things that are going to not be compromisable. You're not going to be able to sit down and have a discussion and say, well, we'll meet in the middle. We'll only kill some of them. It's like, no, that kind of is a, very divisive line. And so what you've done is when you force somebody to say, you're going to be silent about my desire to do this, and I think this should be law and everybody should pay for it through their taxes. And, this is just, these are things that you're not going to sit down and resolve by a discussion. I think the old days, the Democrat ideas of, equality, it's interesting because Winston Churchill, he made a statement one time when he was a young man, or when he was an older man. He said, if by the time a man is 20, he's not liberal, he has no heart. And if by 40, he's not a conservative, he has no mind. And so the point of that was you cannot solve every problem by throwing money at it. And that seems to be a Democrat staple these days. You solve the problem by throwing money at it. And it's like, no, I think you may create some problems along the way there.
Yeah, I think so too, because somewhere down the line, somebody's got to pay for that. And I feel like we're paying for a lot of it right now with the high gas prices. How are the gas prices in where you are?
Oh, no, that's anything. See, the United States is like 20, is much bigger than we are. We got 30 million people in the country, and you guys got 300 million. So it's 10 times the problem, but it's 10 times. On the other hand, if you start to put pressure on things, it's 10 times the problem. So we're sitting here, we're paying for the liter, which is about a quart in America. We're paying almost the same price per liter as you're paying per gallon.
Wow. So is there any resistance in Canada? Because here we're reacting, and you're beginning to see an underground of people coming up now. They're not fighting, they're just passionate about all this. And that's what I'm seeing, boots on the ground. That's what I'm seeing here in, in my part of the world. And people are just fed up and they're just really tired. And, a lot of folks who would say, well, we'll just let the government run it and we'll just go from there. These people are beginning to get upset, not violent like it's being depicted on television or on, a lot of the liberal channels, but just plain tired. What are the reactions where you are?
Yeah, I agree. I think, here we have a different kind of a reaction. Canadians are sort of known for being, polite and not saying much, but the actual fact is that the government has responded way over the top. When you probably heard about the truckers convoy because it kind of went around the world. And the truckers went to Ottawa with one of the most peaceful and controlled protests that I think the world's ever seen. There was no guns, no violence, no anything. And the government planted, certain kind of flags, swastikas and stuff in the crowd. They were so small and so insignificant, nobody noticed. But the government used those things to actually hire, UN troops to fly into the country and be dressed up as policemen who then just basically, were jackboots on the ground. They beat people and they ran over people with horsebacks and they did all kinds of crazy stuff. And literally, they arrested all these people. They threw them in jail for nothing because they were organizers of this event. They declared an emergency act like we were at war. And they threw a bunch of pastors in jail and they confiscated a bunch of churches. And people don't sort of get that. They don't really understand what's going on here. And then they let out, one of the principal organizers is a woman, a grandmother who sings with guitar and does a nice job out in the West. And they just arrested her again for violating parole because she went to a meeting where she was honored with an award for freedom. And so because she went there, they arrested her again. It's like they threw her back in jail. That happened just this week. So, I mean, we are living in a country that has become a totalitarian bunch of people, goons. They're really bad. Now, are people pushing back? Yeah, but the problem is this: Canada does not have guns. We do not have the ability to. I mean, we have a few hunting rifles and that kind of thing that government allows us and tells us that's the only God-given right we have, and we don't have any right to use them on anybody. Only the government can shoot you. You can't shoot them. So that's the situation.
Well, here's the situation we have here, and it's about gun control. But here's the issue with that. First of all, a thug who is going to go into a school and start shooting a bunch of children, probably got the gun illegally, and it's going to be something 10 times bigger than what I could ever get. I mean, so they're finding ways to get guns, but we feel like our rights are being taken away, slowly.
Yeah, and it's always the law-abiding people who pay for this, and the ones who are left without ability to defend themselves or do anything. And the point of the Second Amendment in the first place was that government would not be able to oppress the people. Well, what you have in Canada right now, with all the gun control that Canada has, is that government is totally able to oppress the people, and they bring the guns to a wrestling match. They don't, you don't, when people decide that they want to speak up, the government brings the guns and they shut you down.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, it really is. But so we have, like, I have a gun, my husband, we both carry. And so if we didn't mind going through the criminal check, I mean, I didn't care if they done anything, but it's the people who don't want to go. I mean, I start getting red flags from those folks. You don't want to go through that. And voting is another issue we have here with folks who, don't want to show ID.
Agreed. Something just happened to our sound.
Yeah, you kind of went out on me just a few seconds. That was talking about, gun control, but then also the right to have a fair election. How were your elections held there?
Well, the thing is, they keep claiming that they're fair because, there's no, the problem is this, that we have a political system that does not work. It's patterned after Britain. It's not patterned in any way to engender change or freedom. And so what ends up happening is there's a lot of different factions within the government. You have to form these coalitions to be able to rule things, and it's just not functional. I would say that the prime minister who just went through an election and got reelected is probably one of the most hated men ever to run. But we don't vote for a prime minister. We vote for parties, and they select the prime minister. And so that's the problem. You're not really set up in the same way to bring change. It's very, very, very difficult, especially when a party is basically responsible for more than 50% of the country's income. It's like you're not going to get rid of that party in a hurry.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about, you're looking over the fence right now into America. What are you seeing? Because sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. Now, I'll have to tell you, I can see the forest for the trees, but sometimes people just can't. They choose not to look, something, whatever. But from your side of the fence, looking over into American, what are your thoughts about our last election?
Well, I mean, to me, it was rather obvious that Joe Biden was not ever the recipient of more votes than Barack Obama got. That seemed to me to be fairly, such a big red light that I thought, how could Americans even think that he won the election in the face of a president that was doing good things for the country, that was gaining, worldwide respect and all kinds of stuff? It was like, this is really, really dumb. And in my opinion, that's what I saw. Now, everybody else, being an American living in Canada, it's a different thing, because like, I love America. I was raised to love the country, and not, so I feel like I've got as much of a vested interest as anybody living in the country. And I don't have this, I may have a cosmopolitan viewpoint from the standpoint that I live outside of it, but I don't, until I had my stroke. I had a stroke about 3 years ago. And until I had that, I was crossing the border. I was as much at home in the US as in the States, and probably I had a home over there, everything. But then 3 years ago, after the stroke, I couldn't drive and I couldn't talk for almost a year. So I've really come a long way. And, releasing music again is like a dream come true. It's amazing. But it's God doing that. It's allowing me to, I think, to have this kind of cosmopolitan, outside the country perspective, and yet also seeing from being in Canada, where you see all the abuses magnified, and you see that America still has a process that will call out and possibly correct what's gone wrong in their system. Whereas in Canada, it's kind of like we've entrenched it into our system to be wrong and to stay there.
Well, how close do you think America could be to having the same issues you guys have as far as our election process?
Well,
we're slipping into that process.
You gotta fix it. I mean, the problem is that it has to be fixed in order for tyranny not to happen. I mean, if we don't fix it, if we let people fix the elections, then what you have is a tyrannical government, regardless of who's fixing them. Somebody is trying to control the population, not let the population tell select their government. Mm-hmm. So that's where you're at. I mean, it's like, okay, so it's got to be fixed. I think the 2000 Mules film was a phenomenal thing to come out, because it's like everybody's been saying, well, there's no evidence. Well, there's lots of evidence. It's just people aren't willing to look. So those are the things that I see.
Well, I'll have to tell you something I'm concerned with. We just had a runoff election a few days ago, and a little bit over 10% of Alabamians voted in that election. And almost a little bit over 4 million people in Alabama, the state of Alabama. And that was pretty, and then again, I'm boots on the ground. So this is what I'm hearing folks in our area say, well, I don't see the point, because we feel like the election was stolen anyway, the last election. And so, but I'm trying to get people out of that mentality, because every vote does count. We had a couple of people who were elected that if some conservatives had went out and elected, I feel like the good ones would have gotten elected. So, and, people are just, well, I'm just tired of it. I'm, don't like the, midterms. I don't like runoff elections. Just wait for the primary. Do you not feel like it's a little bit too late, or wait for the general election? It may be a little too late if you wait until the general election based on the runoff results.
Yeah, I don't here's the situation when you're dealing with these kind of things, you're dealing with people's apathy. It's like, if people don't realize that they only have one shot at this, like every election is like, this is the only shot we've got, because if you don't protect what you've got, you'll lose it. And well, my fourth song on the new album that's coming out is oh, by the way, that album is dropping on July 29th. And the song that you got on there was a preliminary bonus track that we didn't really have planned actually for the record, but that was just for fun. And so we've got this album coming out, but the fourth song on it is called Use It or Lose It. And it basically, it's a parallel between the stroke that I went through and realizing that I've got to do a lot of very hard things that I didn't really like doing. I had to learn to walk again. I'm watching my grandkids and we're learning to walk together. It's kind of like, okay. So there are so many things that we have to realize that I didn't want to be here at my age. I didn't want to be learning to walk at my age, but I'm there. And if I don't do it, I will never get it back. I will not walk. And it's just the same thing in politics. If you decide that you're done, I'm too tired of this. I don't like this. Okay, I don't like it either. But the reality is that we only have this shot, because who knows? I mean, I could walk out tomorrow and be hit by a car and be done anyway. And so the one shot that you have is the only thing you're ever guaranteed. It's what's right in front of you. And if people are saying, "Oh, I'm tired of this, I don't want to be a part of that," we are losing the right to self-government because we don't exercise the right to self-government.
Absolutely, because if you give up on this, and I'm talking to all of us folks, and you guys in Alabama, I'm going to tell you what, it's a disappointment. Only about roughly 11% of folks in the entire state showed up for this. So it's a little disappointing, but let's go ahead and keep going at it. We're not going to go into the bottom of the hour break, so we'll just go ahead and carry on until the next segment. So let's talk a little bit about music, and because I'm going to tell you what, I love music. Growing up in a broken home, parents not getting along with each other, that was my animals. I loved pets and music. That kept me going on. I mean, it really did. And I'm assuming you don't use radio and earplugs in my ears.
Yeah, I hear you. Listen, music has always been a part of me, ever since I was very young. And I've been writing and performing since I was about 14 years old, I guess. In terms of, actually creating something that got on a record, I've been doing it for a lot of years. And I'm just about 65 now. And, I've kind of given up the idea that I'm ever going to be a Mick Jagger tomorrow or somebody in the big way. But after 100 records, it's like, you've done everything that they've done. You've sat down with people in the same level, and you're not really actually too concerned about that. It's more like the music is the thing that kind of holds you together at times. And so you do it. And it's even in the stroke years, like the very first thing they did was they said, one of the things in the hospital they did was they brought in a whiteboard and they said, just write down, what's your goal? What are you going to do when you get out of this bed? And it's like, well, I couldn't walk for a month, and I was trapped there. And the very first thing I wrote down was, I'm going to get my music back.
Mm-hmm. So that was a driving force in your life.
Yeah, it really was. I mean,
it kept you going. Nothing else would have. Of course, God, but God uses tools in our lives to help us kind of see where it goes. But, there have been a number of folks who were actually late bloomers in music that have been held very successful careers. You never know.
Oh, I know that, and I'm kind of like, those are all like bonuses for me. I'm like, yeah, it'd be nice to have and I think this album actually, because it's so strong, like there's 12 songs on this record that are in right across the genres. Like you're gonna find on there, there's a country song, there's a ska song, there's just one. I'm just picking and choosing, but I'm writing for America. I'm writing for Canada. I'm writing for everybody. And I'm saying the things. To me, the music is the vehicle that allows me to speak to this moment in our history, because what this album is about freedom and about truth and about not it's anti-tyranny. That's what this record's all about. And so 12 songs, really hard hitting. Some of them are very specifically, mentioning Canadian politicians. Some of them talk about Americans. And the one you got, I think, is, that's American. It's rhinos, it's Republicans. We don't have that party in Canada. So,
well, let me add, you just brought up another question. So which do you think is worse, a Democrat or a rhino? If you had to choose one, which would it be?
Here's the thing. To me, it's like, God's a redeemer and he can change anybody. So it's not the person, but the ideology. I think the rhino is dangerous because it's deceptive. It's actually Democrat, but it's masquerading as somebody that's going to defend Republican principles, and they're just not. It's just not going to happen. So the deception of that is something that I can't abide. But the Democrat platform is it depends on, there's extremes, and there's people that are holding kind of to an old Democrat idea. I think about people like Manchin and people like Tulsi Gabbard, and I'm trying to wrap my head around why they're still Democrats, because it's like, you guys are Americans, you guys are real, it's like, but you got all these other people. I don't know. It's a tough one.
It is. I want to get back into your music in just a few minutes, but I want to ask you another question. And this is about a third party. Do you think America is ready for a third party? What if, I'm going to give you a scenario. What if Donald Trump said, you know what? I'm tired of fighting Democrats and Republicans. I'm going to do third party. You think that would be a good idea?
You know what? There are smarter minds than mine politically that would.
Yeah, but you got a genuine mind. You really care, and that says a lot.
Here's where I'm at with that. It's like, I don't know that the structure of a third party is ever a good idea. And the reason that I don't know that that's a good idea is because people are limited in the way they perceive choice. And here, what we have in Canada is like this. The NDP breaks away from the Liberals and they move everybody to the left. And now the third party is a further left party than, so you have it's kind of like putting your Bernie Sanders and your Elizabeth Warren on one extreme and your AOC, you like let them have their own thing, their own party, but then they grow and they become this big block. And then suddenly the Liberals aren't left anymore. Suddenly the Liberals are the centrists. And so people start looking at that and going, but they're still left and they still move left. And the problem is then the conservatives start to say, well, we're such a small group. What we have to do is have to appeal to more of those people that are over on that side. And so then the conservatives start moving left. And now in Canada, really, we have three leftist parties. We don't have a conservative party anymore. We have conservatives in name only, like you have rhinos. So it's like, so what happens is you got this whole shift now. There's a push in Canada now to have a fourth party to move the other direction. And they're going to start off really small and very inconsequential. And they're going to move people in the other direction. And maybe they'll eventually, if we've got, 50 years, they'll probably swing the country back in the right direction. But I don't think we do. I think that 50 years, the whole culture is going to collapse by then. That's
there went Rome. I mean, we are heading in the very same direction Rome was I mean, this whole society in America makes me think of Rome. I mean, it's just
It's pretty amazing how it works. But you know what? It's not just Rome. It's Greece. It's
right.
Persia. It's Babylon. It's all of every major civilization has had a couple of problems near the end. You watch the dissolution of the culture. You watch them disintegrate. Part of it is the whole loss of gender. It is like every culture that has disintegrated right at the end has gone through this just fascination with androgyny, like, oh yeah, I don't know if I'm male, female, who cares? Mix it all up, marry who you want. Every culture has gone through this right at the end. And we are just sitting there. And every one of them has pretty much, if you took the average number of years it took for the culture to get there, from the rise of their strength, it was about 240 years. That's right about where we are.
Yep, absolutely. And it can happen in one generation, but now I've seen this happening for decades. My son was going to school in the 1990s, I believe it was, and he came in from school and he said, "Hey, Mom, I have to have a calculator for math." Well, in my mind, no, you don't. That's cheating. So I said, "No, I think you're just saying the teacher wants you to have." And he said, "No, Mom, here it is. Here's the note. I have to have a calculator." So I called the teacher. I was upset about it. And I said, "Brad tells me he has to have a calculator in math. That seems like cheating to me." And she said, he's right. He does have to have a calculator. I said, "Well, I thought the whole idea of math was to be able to think in your head." And here I am, concerned mom. To me, that was another breaking point. When you start adding, you got to work with your mind that God gave you. And I mean, I'm seeing the same thing with, handwriting and the whole works. So I've seen it happening through the school system for several decades, and it comes in little bites. It's like little sound bites. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're taken in.
Yeah, I do think there is a point to, part of learning is to learn to use the technology that we have at our fingertips. And so there's that.
Gotta have it, but it can't be all that.
No, it can't replace it. It has to be an add-on kind of approach to things and have its own deal. So you got to have stuff that you're thinking in your head plus the other. Because I think we've lost, the ability to think logically. Most people don't know what a fallacy is. And they don't know, they play with fallacies in order to define fallacies. Like I even found philosophy professors who were professors of logic that couldn't think logically through a system. It's like, and I get it. I understand why. It's because the culture is telling them, your logic has to move over and make room for these quote unquote your own truths. Well, your own, that's an oxymoron. I mean, it's like the truth is truth, and you discover it, you don't invent it. But in this world, everybody thinks you can invent your own and have your own, and that's how it's going to be.
Absolutely. And then when you start taking away the logic and you start taking away, both my granddads would say, something, you can have every degree in the world, but if you've lost your common sense, you are the dumbest person on earth. I mean, and we're seeing that in the government, just a simple thing about teaching debits and credits in school that needs to be taught again. And then when you're spending, I mean, you own a business, we own our business, we own this radio station. But if I'm spending more money than I'm taking in, I mean, I'm not going to be in business very long. And the government's going to run that way. And that's what I'm afraid of. We're going to see the collapse there.
Well, yeah, I think, it's interesting. I have a relative who was elected to a Canadian government position with the economics portfolio. And I said to him, Jeff, I said, have you ever studied any economics? He says, no. I said, you might want to think about this. And I said, let me give you a couple of people to think about. I said, go study the von Mises Institute, because that's your Austrian economics, which is the foundation. He said, well, we're Keynesian. You have no clue. Just you need to read a little bit, to figure this portfolio out that you're supposed to be running for the whole country. And it's like, but he got elected. So, I mean, it's like, you don't have to have any sort of, handle on reality on there. And so he went there. He was going to be a, great conservative voice. And No sooner did he get there, they started re-educating him on what conservatism was. Well, what conservatism is in the government is very liberal. It's not conservative at all. And the people on the ground who think they're sending conservatives aren't sending them, because they get there, they get re-educated.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what's happening here as well. Just a few minutes left before we're going to break. I'm going to give you about 6 more minutes. So we're cutting it kind of tight. So let's get back
Okay.
to the music again. And
All right.
how important is it what you hear and what you listen to and what you read? Music is very important. I mean, I love all phases of it. I'm not really into the headbanging stuff, but I'm into everything else. I love jazz, love country, love rock and roll, love it all. Christian music, I love it all. So how
Okay.
important is it what we listen to? How does that affect how we think?
Well, everything you put in is going to come out. If you saturate yourself in anything, and so the big problem that I've had with music for a long time is that and even, and I don't want to be too critical of the Christian stuff, but a lot of that is like, it's insipid. It doesn't have any substance to it. There's nothing to think about. It's all, just, oh yeah, it's just worship, and we're all gonna, repeat the same thing over and over again and ad infinitum, and somehow or other that's going to be beneficial. And it's better than putting in garbage, but I don't know that it's all that good. So my attitude towards the album that I just finished was, write something with substance, and write it, because right now is probably maybe the last opportunity I'm going to have to do an album. But this is like, I have to say something about where we're at. So I start off with a blues tune, and I move right into a kind of a progressive rock tune, and then into a country song. And I do this thing, and then the next one's kind of like a Bob Dylan thing. But it's the message, it's what I'm putting out there. It's the reason I do the music is because of what has to be said, and music is the vehicle by which I can say it.
And I'll have to tell you, I'm proud you're doing this. And I think we started seeing a new cycle in music with American Idol. I love the first years of American Idol. I thought it was so fun. Simon, the whole works. And then I started seeing this trend where they're trying to put everybody in a category. And I really love music that's really not in a category. Like I said, I love all genres, not into the headbanging stuff. But anyway, I do love different types of music. And I know there was several people from Alabama who were up in the top 10. And one person in particular, she was actually on my show. I was interviewing her after being in the top 3. And she said, I'm glad I didn't get chosen, to be number 1. And I said, why? And she said, because I'm me. She said, I write songs. I sing. She said, I'm just not a dancer. I don't want to dance. And she said, they're trying to turn me into dancing and putting on a show more so than just singing.
Yeah.
Jessica.
Well, here, this is something like, I run a small label, right? And I have other writers with me and so on that do all kinds of stuff. And one of the things that we do in our meetings, and I think this is kind of instructive for what you're talking about, is we will sit there, and having written a bunch of stuff together, I've got one friend I've written about 135 songs with, and I've written over 3,000 myself. And it's a lot of material. So, but what we do is we sit down with a big whiteboard and we say, okay, now that we've written all this stuff without any restriction, without anybody saying you've got to write this kind of a song and it's got to be this kind of a hit and it's got to be that, I'll say, let's sit down and just make a list, and then we'll start sorting these things into box to see how we can market them, because the market determines, how far it goes out there. So we sit there and we now take songs and we start collecting them together and say, yeah, this is kind of all a theme we're going to develop. Let's finish an album around this, or let's do this. And so we sat down there, and the last meeting I had, we ended up with 10 different projects on the board, because we realized we couldn't market them together, but we can write them the way we want to write them. And that's the whole point, is we sit there with 10 because we don't have limits on what we're doing and saying, well, it's got to be like this, and it's got to be pop, and it's like, no, it's got to be whatever your creativity leads you to, and what God puts in your heart to say. And let's do that, and then be honest, be real writers, be real artists. and put a perspective out there that's respectable, and then we'll figure out if we can sell it or not. Maybe not, you know. So.
Well, boots on the ground again. I'm mentioning that term. I'm doing this a lot lately. But boots on the ground. People are tired of being hand fed everything, and I think you're on something there.
I would agree with that. I'm going to send you a copy of this new album, even though it's not out for another month. I'm gonna get you something so you can get a chance to hear a little bit of the diversity on the record, because it's enormous. I've got influences on there, just to give you an idea. We've got Traffic influences. We've got Procol Harum influences. We've got Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin and Iggy Pop and different ska bands.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
And country influences and some and a little bit of Benny Goodman. I mean, you know, let's be real. The whole
that's back
thing,
a long time ago.
Yeah, but that's, you know, it's that clarinet thing and the pop sensibility, and that's what's in that. It's almost you know, the song I put up there for you is almost like a Dr. Demento kind of a thing, because it's got that tongue-in-cheek sort of approach. Not really it's not serious, but it's not, you know, it's deadly serious in its purpose. Or Roger Miller, maybe, I don't know. That's all going back. I don't think you can be an artist today with the depth unless you do study some of this older stuff and know a little bit about what you're doing. So I'm very cosmopolitan and very you know, I can pretty much fit into any group and talk about it with some intelligence.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been awesome having you on the show. We're gonna have to reschedule you and get you back on so folks can see you.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I'd love to be able to be on video instead of on audio only. But
there's just something about a picture, so you know, it's worth 1,000 words. So, but we'll get you back on again, probably the next couple of weeks or so. And by the way,
I've always loved your show, and I've loved the way you've gone about things. And sort of, it's always been in the back of my head since I went through Alabama back in, you know, what was it, 5-6 years ago, maybe, when I first ran into you.
Well, I sure appreciate that. You know, you're on worldwide TV right now. We're local television, channel 182 on Charter, but we're also on Abundant TV. You can find that on Roku, Apple, and Amazon Fire. So yeah, we're tickled to death about all this. So, but anyway, I'll have to let you go. Let's go into a commercial break and get ready for the next guest. And when the show is over, we'll come up with some more dates, and then we'll get you back on. Okay.
All right, I appreciate that.
It's been great.
I appreciate it.
All right. Absolutely. Okay. Well, folks, let's go ahead and get ready for Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey. They are with Alabama Fair Tax, and they'll probably be calling in today. They're out there on the road, but we'll be seeing them in just a few minutes. So guys, hang in there, okay?
I said, God, you gotta move this mountain. I just don't see it any other way. I'm too weak to make the climb. I need a miracle this time. That's when I heard the voice from heaven say, don't tell me about that mountain. Tell that mountain about me. Face your feet, shout my name, proclaim the victory. You send your prayers down, take a stand, get up on your knees. You told me about that mountain. Now tell the mountain about me. Introduce the problem to the answer, and you will see that problem step aside. There's no place for fear. The God of heaven is near. Step out in faith and face it eye to eye. Don't tell me about that mountain. Tell that mountain about me. Face your fear, shout my name, proclaim the victory. You say mountain, tell that mountain about me. Face your fears, shout my name, proclaim the victory. Don't tell me about that mountain, tell that mountain about me. Face your fears, shout my name, proclaim the victory. You said your prayers, now take a stand, get up on your knees. You told me about that mountain, now tell that mountain about me. Don't tell me about that mountain. I said, God, you gotta move this mountain. I just don't see it any other way. I'm too weak to make the climb. I need a miracle this time. That's when I...
Good afternoon. We are back. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio, that's in Christ Radio, your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications. It's always good to be with you. I know you could be doing anything, but you're watching us right now. We definitely appreciate that as well. You can find us local television, channel 182. You know, we've been actually doing this for a really long time, local television. It's all over North Alabama, and then also YouTube. You've also got us on Abundant TV, which is worldwide now, and it's on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. You can also find us on the web, icradio.media. You can download the apps that way as well. So any way we can grab you, we're going to hang on. You can find us on all the social media sites. Even we're actually going live right now on Twitter as well. So we found this really neat program. And with the help of some of my radio and television friends, and they said, you know, you need to be really streaming it out all over the place. And so we've done that. And thanks to Rob also for all Rob Patz. He's the owner of Abundant TV. And so he's going to be on the show tomorrow around 1 o'clock. 2 o'clock, we'll be talking with Don Hunden. He's with Lookout Mountain Cowboy Church. In just a few minutes, we are going to be talking with Chuck and Mary Lynn Bailey, and they are with Alabama Fair Tax. But while we're waiting on them, we had this awesome lady, one of our listeners, and it was Janice. Janice said, you know, my cooling unit went down. And we are sweltering here, and I can't just keep going to the grocery store all the time to cool off. They're wondering why I'm there. As a matter of fact, she said one of the ladies who worked the front said, you know, we're going to put you on payroll if you keep hanging around. And she said, well, it's hot at my house. The air has stopped working. So she wanted me to come up with some tips how to stay cooler. And we talked about a number of those right before JL came in. I'm going to have to get him back on. And it was a lot of fun talking with him. Don't you just love people who think with their own minds? And they don't have to be told what type music or anything like that. They just go with it. It's whatever they feel like they need to do. We talked about looking into a swamp cooler for dry climates. Now, when I saw that one, I was just kind of like, what? Swamp cooler? What does that mean? In very dry areas of the country, they may use this evaporative type cooler or swamp cooler indoors to keep a home cool. If you experience evaporative cooling when you emerge from a swimming pool, and every time you use a fan, you will also experience a cooling effect. So when you sit on the outdoor patio next to the fan with a Meister, then the water evaporates and it cools the air around it. Now, on the Texas Gulf Coast, we do not use these types of coolers because inside the home is simply already too humid. So too much humidity makes it harder to perspire, which makes it feel muggy and hotter than it really is. So sweating is a good thing. Again, we don't use swamp coolers indoors in the Houston area, but you can use one with a fan if you're working out in your garage or with your outdoor patio. I remember back in the day, there was on Noble Street in Anniston, there were a number of stores. And now this is back before everybody had air conditioning and what have you. One of them was a Woolworth store. And I know Phil probably could tell me the name of the other one, but there was a Woolworth, and I can't remember the name of the other store. But anyway, we would go there, and downtown Saturdays, you just went shopping. And people really dressed up. My mother used to wear suits and spike heel shoes when she would go shopping back in those days. And my aunt, my grandmother, and all of them would do that too. But back in the day, it just felt so cool. We didn't feel the heat like we do now. It's the same heat, same humidity, the same everything. It's just we got a little spoiled with the air conditioning. So what we would do, it was always be so fun to go into Woolworth, and they had this gigantic fan. I mean, this gigantic fan almost seemed like, you know, half the size of our house. And you would walk in, we would just stand under it. And somehow it kept, they sold candy in these, like every kind of candy you could possibly think of. And there was like, you could get a little cup and get the kind of whatever kind of candy you wanted and then pay for it and just eat it out of the bag. But for some reason, even during those hot, smoldering hot days of summer back in those days, back in the 1960s, the late 60s, somehow the chocolate didn't melt. I'd love somebody to give me an answer for that. Okay, let's talk about when heat becomes a medical issue. Too much heat can become a serious medical issue, especially for the very young, the elderly, and those with certain kinds of medical conditions. Now, initially, heat can cause people to become irritable and upset because they're uncomfortable. We refer to that as heat talking. I didn't know they had a name for it. I've been that way lately with Phil, I'm sure. The occupational Safety and Health Administration explains how to spot symptoms of heat-related illnesses. We have an app that's called the Heat Index. And so you need to look that up. That's a really good app right there to have, but it's called the Heat Index. And let me go ahead, and there they are. I think they're in, but let me go ahead and put them on speaker as well. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration explains how to spot the symptoms of these heat-related illnesses. They have an app they call the Heat Index. You need to download that. The app shows the heat index symptoms of heat illness and first aid. It's very important to address these symptoms before they progress, because it can cause faintness, and that's what happened to Mother. And so she was working out. We told her not to do it. She did anyway. So she was working outside in the garden at noon and had a bunch of clothes on because she doesn't want wrinkles and all that stuff. And so I think she passed out, and then she fell. And so you've got to, I'm stressing this, be very, very careful when you go outside in the heat, because it's that important. Okay, guys, can you hear me? I'm not hearing y'all. Hold on just a second. Okay, try it now.
Okay, can you hear it?
Now we can.
Hello.
Hey. So how are you guys doing?
We're doing fine, and absolutely be aware of the heat index, because you can think if you have a temperature out there but the humidity is correct, it's still like being hot. So
yeah, absolutely. And then a car, and I've mentioned this several times. If I'm at a department store, I'm at a Walmart or whatever, and I look in your car and the windows are up and there's a baby in there or any child in there or an animal in there, I'm going to bust your window lights out.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'll just do that. So think about that. And I almost did it one time several years ago. I was at Walmart in Fort Payne. And so I passed by, and this lady had a van and no heat on or no cooling on, and the windows were up, and I saw a dog in there. And she saw me. I was about to get something to knock the lights out, the windshield out. And so she comes running out there. Oh, I'm back already. Don't do that. Don't do that. And I said, how long do you think you would be in there? And she said, I thought I would only be in there for 5 minutes. And I said, only 5 minutes. The heat is magnified inside. So anyway, I'm just saying that if I go to a department store, I'm just warning you, and I see an animal or a child in there, I'm going to knock the windshields out. I promise you, I will do that. I'll find something.
It doesn't matter what the temperature is. You never leave a child inside.
No, that's a death sentence. It really is. You're killing your child when you do that. So anyway, and it could also, if it doesn't kill them, could cause brain damage as well. So, that's just a definite nobody. And this is the way it is. You go into Walmart, you're going to run into everybody you know, and somebody wants to talk to you. And even if you do the self-checkout, you're still not going to be there only 5 minutes. No. There's no way. I've never done that ever. As quick as I always am. So let's talk about Alabama fair tax. But before we talk about that, I wanted to ask you about what you thought about the runoff election, about having about 11% voter turnout.
I think for the state of Alabama, that's fairly lousy.
Mm-hmm.
This we're touted as the most conservative state in the United States, and yet we conservatively don't vote.
Yeah. But everybody has an opinion now.
Right. Well, the thing about it is, if you get right down to the brass tacks of things, there are really 3 votes. You go in and vote, or you don't, or you go in and you go vote yes, you can go vote no, or you don't have to go vote. That's a vote.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If you don't show up to vote, that's a vote. So what that says is you don't care. And so whatever everybody else comes up with, you're willing to go along with, except when you start catching the blowback from their vote, and then you start complaining, but then that's too late.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a little bit of a different take on that for the people who don't vote. If you don't know who to vote for, don't vote.
Yeah, I guess so. If you're not an informed voter, don't vote. Yeah,
Right.
that's true, because I've heard people, and I have heard this from family members who would say, well, I voted for so-and-so, and it would be like the worst person you could possibly vote for. And I would ask, why did you vote for them? And they would say, well, I kept hearing their name on television. And I would say, but did you listen to their commercial? If you've done any research, you know, I mean, it's just incredible. You've got to do research right now.
Yep.
I mean,
And actually, listening to commercials and reading those things that come in the mail, that doesn't make you an informed
can't
voter.
trust
You really need to do like
Either side.
yeah,
No.
Trust.
you need to go to events and you need to ask questions.
Right.
Yeah, some of those folks, I thought it was kind of interesting. On the mail outs, they would say Trump was endorsing them or whatever, or they would make it look as if Trump was endorsing them. And all it was just a picture of Trump with them. I mean, I've got a picture with Trump. I mean, that doesn't mean he's endorsed me.
Well,
There are all kinds of people with pictures of themselves with Trump.
Yeah.
yeah, well, also manipulating the truth too. There was one that accused Mo Brooks of taking $2 million from the government, but that was his pay over 2 years.
Yeah, well, he did, but he did get paid. I mean, you know, so.
It was for meaningful work.
Yeah. When people start lying on the campaign trail, they're eliminated from me from that point. I mean, I will not vote for them. Any kind of lie, I'm done.
Evidently that worked because enough people believed that was a bad connotation to the 2 million words vote for.
Yeah, but also here's the way I'm looking at it. If she couldn't get, and I'm saying she, everybody knows who I'm talking about. If she could only get, 11% of Alabamians out to vote, that's not showing a whole lot either.
Right.
So
and it's going to mean, and people don't understand that what that means in the long term is you're in the Senate and you're trying to get something done, and the people look at it and say, who cares about you? Only 11% of your people voted.
Probably typical of any primary runoff. People, they feel like they've done their duty once they've voted in the primary, if they even do that. So, I mean, I've talked to people who only vote in November.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, me too. There's a huge number of people who only vote in November.
And actually, again, that's one of those cases where if you're not an informed voter, I just soon let the informed people pick the primary winners.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are two sides to that, and it would be nice if all of our constituents, all of the people in the state were educated, and I mean politically educated, but they're not, and for a lot of reasons. I wasn't for a long time when I was younger. So.
Well, one saving grace is that since Mo won't be in the House next year, we still have a pledge signer that says he will support, promote, and vote for the fair tax. And that's Dave Strong. He's going to be running against somebody. I don't know who it is. The Democrat. We never know who the Democrats are anymore because there's not enough of those guys coming out and running. So, and I'm thinking we're to the point to where a lot more Democrats need to start running to give these guys some competition, because it can go bad in this direction just as badly as it did in a previous direction.
Well,
for the Democrats.
another thing that happened too is because the Democrats didn't have candidates to vote for us, they voted in the Republican
They voted
primary.
on,
Diluted that vote, and so this was not a good season for me.
Yeah, it was not for me either. Not for me. I'm really, really disappointed in that.
Yeah, I told Chuck we're not going to. We do not endorse candidates on purpose because we have to represent.
Sure.
We're representing their tax, but we do have political opinions, and I told Chuck we're going to have to stop. Sending money to people that we like because we always lose.
Yeah, don't do that. If I ever decide to run for dog catcher, don't send me any money.
I also said I wish I tempted to send money to Mitch McConnell.
Oh yeah, do that. Yeah, and Joe Biden, going ahead and send him some.
yeah.
But by hook or crook, he'll get in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the biggest reason that I was hearing, and I was joking at this. I think votes do count. I really do. Now, do I think there was some riffraff going on the other time? Yes, I think something was going on. However, a lot of folks in my area right here said, well, I don't think it matters anyway. Because look what happened in the last election. What do you say to somebody who says that? Because, I mean, it's true. But you still have to keep trying.
Well, the thing about it is yep, and you're the reason why.
Well, we have to quit. We have to keep working to straighten things out. We can't just let it go because if we do, China welcomes us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be nice slave labor for them.
Yeah, I'm sure of it. Eating rice, they all will get.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Yeah, that's true. So let's talk fair tax. I don't know. This is probably one of the biggest issues that I'm for. I'm for fair tax. To me, this would eliminate a lot of headaches, and I think it would really put us on the profit side of the country if you could ever feel that way. I can't see anything to fuss about with fair tax.
No, because what it does is it brings brings down the problem of having your labor taxed. And that, whenever you pay an income tax, that's tax on your labor, and so you're able to make your money and save it up and everything without having to be taxed, and then you only pay taxes once you buy something. So that's.
And at the federal level, everyone participates in paying taxes. Everyone. There's nobody that gets now.
Everyone's spending money in the United States.
That's right, and not only citizens, but people who are visiting here. So that is absolutely. The fair tax is called the fair tax for a reason because it is absolutely fair. Even Senator Shelby said it was the fairest way to tax, although he would never co-sponsor because he doesn't co-sponsor.
Well, do you think Katie Britt will?
I don't know.
She looked at us with
Kay Ivy's eyes.
Kay Ivy's eyes when we talked to her about it.
So
what do they call that? The deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
What?
We see a lot of that. Yeah. People who are elected. But just, I don't know. How about Tommy Tuberville?
He claimed that he was kind of, it looks like a good idea. I got to study it more, but that was when he first ran, so I don't know about him.
I'm not sure about him at all. I know that I was voting for him again. To be honest, I really probably shouldn't say.
I think we need to go study and see what he's done.
Yeah, I have to say that I told my neighbors that if Katie Britt won the primary, I would vote for Will Boyd, the Democrat. And the reason is because we have spoken with him, and he is an honest man. Now, how he would perform in the Senate, I have no idea. It would give another Democrat, or give the Senate another Democrat. But from Okay, I'm not going to say anymore because I'm going to get myself in trouble.
Oh, okay, but let me ask you a question though. Okay, so if you had to have dinner with one of two people, if it could only be, say, a Democrat or a Rhino, which person would you rather have dinner with?
You're saying no? I don't.
I'd choose the Democrat because at least if you knew where the darts were coming to, you'd be able to avoid them.
Well, also, not all Democrats are cast in the same mold either. We have spoken to, in fact, when we were looking for another sponsor for our bill in Montgomery, Ron Scott is a Black Democrat. He went to Yale, right? He has an economics degree from Yale. Very, very smart man.
All I thought of in the house stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, because he's Black, he's kind of tied into the caucus that, they don't really have the freedom to vote the way they actually believe. And, we've spoken to other Black Democrats that I have a great deal of esteem for, but again, they're tied into the caucus.
Well, and I'll have to say this about Walt Maddox, who was running against Kay Ivey. I actually was more impressed with him. He was very cordial when he was on the show. He actually answered my questions and wanted to be back on. I mean, I've interviewed him several times.
Well, again,
I think he may run again.
Yeah.
They don't have the power of the money behind them. That's the problem.
Well, I actually do wish there were a vibrant Democrat Party, because then the Republicans would have to.
I wish there was a vibrant Republican Party.
I feel so.
I don't know if Mo so much is lost as the other side was able to buy their way in.
Yeah, that was absolutely.
There was over $20 million spent on the other side, and Mo was working with $600K to $1 million of $5 and $10 and $15, and they were complaining about him taking money.
Yeah, but let me say this. Okay, Mo only wanted to be on the show for free stuff. He wanted to be, but when it came to buying ads, he didn't do it. Where he was spending his money? With liberals.
The thing, no, again, he only had less than $1 million, and he's very smart about where he puts his money. I know the first time he ran, and actually I didn't vote for him the first time he ran. I voted for Les Phillip, who was running again. Who was running. Great guy. He would have been a good congressman, but Mo was putting his money, because he didn't have a lot, putting it where it actually made a difference. And
well, as a conservative talk show host, and I'm one of very few, I took exceptions to that, because I could turn on the television and see with the liberal TV stations where he was running his ads. So to me, if you're trying to get a conservative vote, you might want to go to conservative radio stations and television stations.
Yeah.
Let them hear from you. But now he was okay on being on the show for free stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's like we said, he was really having to husband his money, because he just did a whole bunch of it. He was being raked over the coals from the other side, 10-1. So
yeah, plus
maybe it's 20-1.
Yeah. And Katie Brett had the Democrat Party behind her.
She had the Democrat Party behind her because they liked each other.
Go ahead and vote for her, because what she says, when she's actually elected, she'll be on our side. So
I don't think so, because actually I think she's the reason Doug Jones, not her, only her, but I think that Shelby was the reason we got Doug Jones.
Yes, and she was part of that too.
Mm-hmm.
So, I doubt that we'll ever get any support from her. I truly doubt it. If we do, it'll be a bonus, and it will only be because the people of Alabama demand it.
Yeah.
But that is the only reason we'll ever get her support.
So the people who really believe in this, and I do, how do we approach people? I mean, how do we get people to listen?
Well, first of all, you contact your congressman, your local, and all of everyone that you vote for, whether they can do anything for the fair tax or not.
They have influence.
They have influence. Yes, and let me tell you a story. When we were when we first became in charge of the 5th district, and it was when Mo was running, we actually got Parker Griffith, who was a Democrat. Or he was a Democrat who became a Republican. He became our first co-sponsor because he was in a debate with Les Phillip and Mo Brooks, who both knew about the fair tax. In the debate, they were all asked the question, about how they felt about the fair tax. Les had a terrific answer, and Parker Griffith really didn't know very much about it. And right after that debate, we were in the car going home. I got a call from Washington saying that Parker Griffith wanted to meet with us. Okay. This was I think it was on Thursday or Wednesday. And so we went in, and I said, well, do you want a presentation, or do you want to just ask questions? Because he'd always told us he'd read the book. He knew all about it. And he said, oh, no. He said, I'm going to co-sponsor. So it was the will of the people in the 5th district that drove him to co-sponsor. I don't think it was his first choice. I mean, I know it wasn't his first choice because we were taking petitions to his office monthly. We had postcards that people would fill out, and we were on hugging terms with his secretary. I mean, it would, but he would not support the fair tax until he was forced to. Well, shortly after that, we went to a pancake breakfast for some of the political candidates, and one of the people who was running for city council came over and said, do you know the first question I'm asked when I go door to door is, are you for the fair tax? He said, there's nothing I can do for the fair tax. But he said, that is the first question I get every time I knock on the door. And so we gave him a sticker to wear when he was out door knocking. But that kind of pressure moves the legislature, the political parties. And so that's what we need. And I really don't know any other way to get people to, to contact everyone counts. It's you can't say, well, I assume other people are going to do it. You have to assume no one else is going to do it. You have to do it by yourself. So, but until we get that kind of support, no matter how many people like the fair tax, we're not going anywhere.
Just somebody has to stand up, and it's the same people that should have voted during this runoff election.
Yeah. Well, that's the beast that we're up against. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of corruption down in Montgomery. I was really floored the first time we went down there to see the kind of, I knew about it in Washington, D.C. I knew that, there was a swamp in Washington.
There's one in Montgomery, too.
Swamp in Montgomery, yeah, and it is there. And until we get an informed electorate, it's going to continue that way. That's why I said I'd like to have a vibrant. I'm a Republican. I will admit that, but the fair tax is not it doesn't know a party. I mean, it truly is for everyone, and so I'd like to see a vibrant Democrat Party. Obviously, again, like Chuck said, a vibrant Republican Party, because we keep people who do the same thing.
Over and over again. So,
and then once they're elected, they don't know you anymore.
So let me ask you a question, okay? And this pertains to, let's just say, what the Democrat Party is about and what the Republican Party is apparently about as well. So why would they want fair tax? Because if they're in it and they're in the swamp, do they really want fair tax?
No, that's the problem. We cannot do this through the politicians. It has to be done from the people. The people have to say, either you're for the fair tax or I won't vote for you. That's what they have to say. And
I don't care about all that other stuff you want to give me. If you're not for the fair tax, I'm not voting for you.
Right. And then we have to tell them, not just when they were running for election, we have to tell them all the time.
Yeah, you got to keep it up.
Every time they have a meet and greet, just
You got to be there.
Are you for the fair tax? Are you going to support the fair tax? It depends on how important it is to you. And for us, that's the first thing we ask. Of course, when Mo was first elected, we would go to his meeting at town halls and things like that. I always raised my hand. That was a little more
civilized.
But anyway, I always raised my hand. He said, "Well, here comes the fair tax question," and it wasn't always a fair tax question, because I have other questions about how the country and the city and the state is run, and but he knew he was going to get a fair tax question, and he became educated on it because of that. Because when he was first elected, he was fair tax, flat tax. He did one or the other. And there's the fair tax is a flat tax on everyone in the country, but it also makes sure that no one is taxed up to the poverty level. So I don't know how you can get more fair than that, to be honest. It gets at the federal level, you screwed up the most regressive tax of all, and that's Social Security. It pays for Social Security, but it doesn't tax young people, making their just starting out. It's and with the Social Security, you don't get a refund at the end of the year. You pay in until either you make a certain amount of money or pay it the full time.
Making it the most regressive tax.
Yes, it is in the country.
Let's talk a minute about regressive tax. What exactly is that?
That means that you pay that tax on the first dollar earned until you paid off that tax.
Right. With the income tax, they do take into consideration. They have different levels of taxation. That's if you make a certain amount of money, you'll pay a certain percentage, and the more you make, the higher the percentage. With Social Security, there is no refund. Now, the only people who actually get not a refund, they actually get they quit paying at a certain level, and that's gone up. I don't remember.
Last hour is 130.
Well, I think it's even more than that now. But when Chuck was still working, it was around 100, 120, 110.
Wasn't that far?
Yeah, it was, because well, anyway. So, but everyone who pays, even the poorest person, if you only make $10,000 a year, you're paying that tax on the full $10,000. With the income tax, you probably wouldn't pay any income tax at all, or if you did, it would be a smaller amount. So that's what a regressive tax is. I'm sorry?
Did you mean the fair tax? You wouldn't pay any tax.
No, I said with the income tax on $10,000, I don't know how much you start, what level you start paying the income tax. Yeah.
We've been rich for so long.
Oh, yeah.
I do.
I'm just impressed you guys would even call into my show. My goodness.
I do remember a time when we were in college and we had $1,000. We made $1,000 that year. I mean, this was obviously a long time ago, but actually $1,000 of taxable money because Chuck was going to steal a GI Bill. But and that was not taxed. Now I think it is. I think they take it all into consideration and give you a little bit of a break for it. Although I don't take my word on that.
Well, let me ask you a question about the percentage. What would be the percentage that would equate to fair tax? The percentage of tax taken out.
Well, it really depends on your family size, because the fair tax only. The poverty level is set by size of family, and so the rebate is given to
heads of household plus dependents.
Right. So if you're single, a single person, your rebate would be at what, 13,000 now?
It would be the taxes on 13,500 or so.
Right. And so, but if you were a family of four, it would be a rebate on around 30 something thousand. So, so that it really doesn't, it doesn't have anything to do with how much you make. In fact, how much you make that's the hardest thing for people to understand. The fair tax has nothing to do with your income. So someone who makes $10 million a year is taxed the same way that someone who makes at that $10,000 a year. But the person who makes $10 million a year buys more stuff and buys more expensive stuff and usually doesn't buy used goods.
And there's no mechanism for them not to pay that tax.
Right. But they don't have to get the rebate. That's a choice. And probably for someone who makes $10 million, that refund of taxes is not enough. That's chump change for them. Yeah. So, that might be lunch.
Yeah.
And so, if you just think about it, if your income is maybe $35,000 a year and your daughter gets married, your wedding is going to be much smaller than someone who makes $10 million a year and their daughter gets married. So the money that's spent in that, and that's another good reason for, when people are talking about getting rid of the grocery tax, you're giving a huge benefit to millionaires. And so when they give their big parties, everything they buy, all of their food is tax-free. When you have no grocery tax. With fair tax, you can buy, a single person can buy up to $1,000 a month tax-free. Or family can buy, I'm not sure how much it is, $2,000. Okay, it depends on the size of the family, but
and how many kids and stuff like that. So
yeah. Right.
And then after that, what is the percentage?
Well, there is no percentage.
It's always there's an effective rate.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
All right, the effective rate then, think about it this way.
Okay.
I don't have I've got the state thing here in front of me, but the numbers for the federal would be the effective rate, if I remember correctly, if you spent all the money that was allowed for your particular situation, like a single person, you spend all that is $13,590 that's tax free. If you spend all of that, well, then the next dollar you spend after that will be taxed. And so you start amortizing the total money you spend over the total taxes that are charged to get what you're buying by the tax there.
You know what? Simplify it, because at the federal level, the rate is 23%. However, right now people are paying more than that, even at the lowest level of income tax, because you're paying approximately 16% Social Security and Medicare, and then if you're paying 10%, if you're in the 10% tax bracket, then you're paying 26% as opposed to 23%. But you never actually, if you take the rebate, you will never actually pay 23% because you're getting the refund of taxes up to the poverty level. So so we have a chart.
I can go to the state thing because I've got the charts in front of me here. Okay. If you're a single person, it's $13,590 is the amount that's that you get the rebate on, and so the annual rebate for that would be $883, or a monthly rebate of $73. If you take that and you spend all of that money, then you have a zero effective rate for up to $13,590. If I spent 1.5 times that 13.5, which is $23.85, you're paying, whenever you pay the taxes, you're paying 6.5% under the state thing. your actual rate is 2.17 because you amortize the taxes over the full amount that you're spending.
Do you ever actually reach the full rate?
So if you spend 256 times 13,590, you'll finally get up to the 6.5% rate effectively.
Mm-hmm. And one big component, we need to really think about this. This is on new items.
Yeah.
And services. This is not.
Service.
Yeah. So if you buy a new car, buy a used car, a used house, would that only? Am I correct?
Yeah.
You're not paying anything. Okay.
There'll be no more requirement. There's no lien on that house anymore for an income tax because there won't be an income tax.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, Andrew asked a question. Andrew asked this as well as Brent wanted to know, how would this affect the gas tax we have now?
This does not affect the gas tax because that's an excise tax that's separate from the fair tax.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let me dig just a little bit because, we got a bigger percentage, Governor Ivey, and so.
Let me just clear that up right now.
Yeah. Okay.
The way that tax is collected is when that gas is pumped into the tank at the distribution point, the tax is charged there. So it's already incorporated in the price of the gas when it shows up.
Before it gets to the gas station.
Before you get to the gas station. So you got no control over that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what would prevent the percentage from being even more than it is? Or could it go up?
It's by law going up a percentage every 2 years or something like that. So
she's talking about fair tax.
Fair tax?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
if we had fair tax.
Well, if we do our regular old thing of only 11% of the people voting, the legislature could come in and say, oh, we're going to sneak this increase in rate on this fair tax thing on the people, and they could vote that in and everything. But by golly, as soon as that, if nobody knew what was happening, as soon as it started being collected, people will notice because on your receipt they have to write on there the exact amount of the tax being charged and then the amount that was charged as far as the tax is concerned. So that would be evident immediately to the people, and that's when it's kind of late, but that's when you would turn around and finally start doing your due diligence to get that turned back around if you don't want that tax.
The other thing is, too, politicians are out there and say, hey, I want to tax you more. There are politicians that got there and say, I want to tax that man behind the tree more. Mm-hmm. But what they do is they come out and plant trees. Mm-hmm. So
they can't do that with a fair tax because everybody that's buying trees is going to be stuck with that tax.
Yeah, everybody pays the same method. It's the rate is collected at the on the object that you buy, and it's included in the price of the item.
Right.
If you see a lamp for $100 on the shelf, and you pay for that lamp, if that tax is already in there, so if you pay for it, you pay $100.
You pay $100, and you don't even have to think. You know that $6.50 is the tax. Mm-hmm. And by the way, you're done with all your taxes. You don't have to worry about filling out forms for income tax. You don't have to fill out forms for this, that. It's all gone away. You just pay the tax and you're done with it. It's over.
Well, this sounds like a dream come true for the regular business person.
Well, it would be because it would take a whole bunch of pressure off them. They wouldn't have to, for the federal level, they would not have to keep up with Social Security and collect all that stuff because it gets collected at the register.
Mm-hmm. Every time you guys are on the show, we get the same question. You can probably guess what it is. And it's inheritance tax.
There ain't no inheritance tax.
The inheritance tax is an income tax. Now, the fair tax at the state and the federal level eliminate all income taxes. Mm-hmm. So, and actually in the state, it eliminates all income and sales taxes and replaces it with a consumption tax.
The single rate consumption tax.
Right, and it's just what you will actually be able to figure out how much you have paid in taxes if you.
What she's saying is that at the end of the year, if you were so wanted to do so, you could go through and decide on all the stuff that you bought that year that's new or services you paid for, and you would be able to calculate within minutes how much tax you actually paid. It would be the exact amount that you paid.
Right. But with
There ain't no way to do that with income
no,
tax.
with income tax, there's no way, because it's taxed at the fair tax gets rid of the embedded taxes, which are taxes that are accumulated from the very
From the very basics of the products and services.
right. So every time that a product is improved, is taxed, and not only is there an income tax, so there's Social Security is added to it for the people who work there. It's a cost of living, a cost of doing business tax, and it's accumulated at every level. So depending on, if you have something that's basic, you'll have less tax embedded in it. But for houses and cars, and I think leather goods are about 16% embedded taxes. Cars and houses are about 28% embedded taxes. So I mean, it
varies all.
You have no way of knowing how much you pay the taxes. I think if you were, you'd have to take every second of your life and figure everything. I don't even know that you can do it then. It is so embedded.
The income tax system, the products and everything, the amount of embedded taxes depends on the complexity of the whatever it is that you're manufacturing or buying or whatever, and the amount of labor it goes into it, because automobiles, maybe not so much now because they got all the robots, but at the beginning of the 2000, right in there, the labor and everything on automobiles was still pretty much hands-on by people, but now it's more or less robots. But the thing about it is, there's a lot of labor involved in those kind of products, and so that means you're gonna have more income taxes involved in Social Security.
It's benefits too. Those are all added into it. So all of those are embedded in the cost of. We have a hammer chart on our website. It's called. If you go to
the hammer chart.
Yeah, if you go to alfairtax.org and look for the hammer chart, you can see how the taxes that it takes, the embedded taxes in producing a hammer that you buy at Ace Hardware. You have the ore and the wood and everything that's comes together to make that hammer. At every level of production, there are taxes added, and depending on how many people are involved in producing it, you have their
each level has accountants, they have lawyers, they have business people, people making business decisions. All that stuff gets rolled up into the price of that.
Right, that's cost of doing business, and that's added on, and that's next level. You have that cost of living, cost of business added on. So by the time it gets to retail, depending on what it is, like I said, is about 16%, and food is, I think, 23%, isn't it? 22 or 23%.
So it's a terrible way to run a house.
Yeah.
Well, the good way to run a house, if you want to get if you want to control people, it really is social engineering, and it really is even about collecting money, because the federal government just prints the money. They, the money that comes in from income tax and Social Security and so on, it has nothing to do with the government. If they want more money, they just print it. The Federal Reserve. I've often said that if they really wanted to do everybody a favor, they'd just give everybody a counterfeit machine, and everybody
they're cheaper.
Not worth anything.
Yeah.
Just like our fiat money is not worth anything now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we're headed into inflation.
Well, let's talk about, I really believe the very first state that decides to do this they'll be the leader. Is there any state out of the 50 states who is just almost ready to go ahead and sign off of it and do it?
No, we've got 3 states that are trying: Alabama, Georgia, and Nebraska. Nebraska got their bill in and read several times this year. They're every other year, so they got as usual, there's always some dastardly deed that happens in the midnight, and a couple of guys they thought were going to vote for it didn't at the last minute, so they're pushed off for another year or two. But they're just redoubling their efforts, and they're going to they've got money somehow. They've got money, and they're planning a big push. They've got people that organizations that are going to start pushing they call it EPIC, and I can't remember what EPIC stands for.
There is not actually the fair tax. It's but their problem in Nebraska is they have a lot of farmers that pay a lot of property tax.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to do something about the property tax, and so it's not. Alabama and Georgia really have the closest facsimile of
it is a fair tax insofar as that they're getting rid of the property tax and any sales tax or any income they've got here, replacing with single rate tax.
Yeah. So
that's the main thrust of a fair tax, is to take whatever you got now and throw it in the dustbin of history and replace it with a single rate consumption tax.
we came really close in 2020. If it hadn't been for COVID, we would have had a vote in the committee.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we no longer have that sponsor. He's not even running again, or he's not running again. And and we also don't have our sponsor in the Senate that we're kind of hoping Milbert's was going to be our sponsor for the federal fair in the Senate.
Well, who do you need to go to? Because I know that you want your Congress, you want your Senate, but how about on a more local level? Who could we start sending out information, faxes, letters, cards, whatever to?
Everyone, all of them, even if it's the dog catchers, send them because they're in government. And like my story about the city council member who had to endorse the fair tax because he was getting asked about it. Mm-hmm. So, we have the paper, Understanding the Alabama Economic Freedom Act, which is on our website. You can print it out. It's one page. It's actually 2 pages, front and back. And you can hand it out to your friends and neighbors, and it's really fairly understandable. I think anybody who reads it would have a pretty good understanding of what the Alabama fair tax is about. And the more information we get out there, that's how we got Parker Griffin to co-sponsor the fair tax the first time around. That's how we got Bo Brooks to co-sponsor the fair tax the second time around. So, and then he became educated on it, and it was actually voting it. So that's everyone. I mean, anybody just print that out and give it to them, to whoever you know. But particularly when you go to city council or school board or any of those places, people who are politically active, if they know about it and know that there's an interest out there, that's how it's going to happen. It's not going to happen because we go to Montgomery. We go to Montgomery. We've been down there over and over again, and we get patted on the head and told, we're doing a good job, and boy, you sure have stuck with us so long. I can't believe what a good job you're doing. But it's just words, because they have no skin in the game at all.
If we were doing a good job, they would be passed.
That's right. So the only way it's going to happen is if the people demand it. And the only way, the politicians are going to know that people demand it is because the people are actually demanding it.
No demand, no get.
That's right.
Well, maybe
and actually, if you don't know who your politicians are, you can go to the website contactmypolitician.com.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, .org, and that website is on the back of that Understanding the Alabama Economic Freedom Act. It will tell you put in your street address and your zip code, and it's not a data collection, and we have nothing to do with it, but they will tell you they will give you a way to contact everyone who represents you.
Dog catcher all the way up
Well,
to the
local
president.
level up to the president, and you can send an email for free. And
They'll back it up. They will
and if they
follow up.
yeah, they follow up to see if you've gotten a response.
Mhm. Okay, well, that sounds like a good one to start with. I think maybe too much emphasis is put on, let's talk to the Congress and let's talk to the Senate. Maybe we all need to get down to more of a grassroots level and start.
That's
What needs to be done is each seems like each congressional district for the federal level is something like 700,000 people or something like that. And once you go through the numbers, it all boils down to about 3,000 votes in that particular area that determine a plus or minus for anything.
Well, sometimes people will belittle somebody trying to get to the big dog. And I learned this a long time ago. I used to be a corporate executive with GTE. And a lot of folks I would see coming through would belittle the person sitting at the front desk. I never belittled that person because that person was the front desk keeper. And I think that may be, and I'm going back to Mo Brooks on this, should have run some ads with me because it's more important to deal with what you got. And
he learned this lesson.
well, liberals are, they're liberals who listen to this show. They really do. As a matter of fact, Democrats love being on this show. They absolutely love it. Now they were running ads, and the ones who ran ads actually won. So, but anyway, my point is to get to the grassroots level. Start with your mayor, maybe. Start with your city council. Get them all riveted up about it, and just let it go up. Because I'm going to tell you, the best person in a company to talk to is the gatekeeper that a lot of people ignore. And that person is the one who has all the control.
The other thing is, too, the dog catcher may be the dog catcher now, but if he's politically active, he may end up being mayor or, go on from there, because people who get into politics don't just stop at, don't generally stop at one position.
It's a stair step. It's to go up to another angle there. And I mean, it's just the way it is. So, I mean, start, and I'm going to tell you what, we've got a great city council here and also a fantastic mayor who really cares about his town. And I think that's why you really need to start there. And I'm going to tell you what, I really think more of the mayor than I do any senator or congressman, because that's where it all starts right here.
Well, it's true, because the mayor actually, talks to the people who are in,
oh, yeah. That's your best start.
Yeah, and that's been our approach. Now, we were very successful in the 5th district. Now, the 5th district is changing now with all the people from California moving here. They're used to high taxes, and when they see
other places besides California.
Yeah, but now we're getting a lot of the tech industry here.
Northeast too.
Yeah.
And again, the property taxes, they're used to paying that. Yeah, I was spoke to speak to someone who was paying over $10,000 a year just on their property tax.
Oh my goodness.
They weren't millionaires. They were just normal people, but that's how much the property tax. When we moved from Atlanta to Huntsville, our property tax is $2,000 in Atlanta. And ordered.
Well, folks, we're going to have to call it a day. It's already less than 1 minute before we go. So thank you again for being on the show today. And folks, let's go on ahead and just get boots on the ground, start talking to the ones that really count. There's your city council members and your mayor. Okay. And any good mayor is going to listen to you. And we got a good one right here in Geraldine. He's absolutely awesome. Chuck Abels. And the city council, and all city councils they'll have a meeting once a month. You just need to find out when yours is. But thank you guys for being on the show, and I'll be talking to everybody later. Y'all take care. Take care. All right. Bye. See you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
You gotta move this mountain. I just don't see it any other way. I'm too weak to make the climb. I need a miracle this time. That's when I heard the voice from heaven say, don't tell me about that mountain. Tell that mountain about me. Face your feet, shout my name, proclaim the victory. You say your prayers, now take a stand. Get up on your knees. You told me about that mountain. Now to the mountain above me. Introduce the problem to the answer, and you will see that problem step aside. There's no place for fear. The God of heaven is near. Step out in faith and face it eye to eye. Don't tell me about that mountain. Tell that mountain about me. Face your fear, shout my name, proclaim the victory. You said your prayers, now take a stand. Get up on your knees. You told me about that mountain. Now tell the mountain about me. Tell that mountain about me. Face your fear, shout my name, proclaim the victory. Don't tell me about that mountain. Tell that mountain about me. Face your fear, shout my name, proclaim the victory. You said your prayers, now take a stand. Get up on your knees. You told me about that mountain. Now tell the mountain about me. Don't tell me about